After 20 years of silence, a CEO hears his ex's voice on the phone and drops everything to run to her. A once-in-a-lifetime second-chance love story you'll never forget. Don't miss this chapter. It holds one of the most unforgettable and passionate scenes between two souls, reunited after 20 years. My beautiful family, I only want one thing from you. Please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave a comment. It gives me the strength and encouragement to keep writing beautiful stories for you. Let's start. With love. Some prisons are built with rose petals and promises, and Camilla Evan had been living in the most beautiful one for 7 years. The marble floors of the penthouse caught the afternoon light, scattering it into 1,000 fractured rainbows that danced across walls, adorned with art she'd never chosen. Camilla stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, her reflection ghostly against the sprawling city below, and pressed one hand against the cool glass. Somewhere down there, in the streets she could no longer walk freely, was the woman she used to be, Mrs. Devi. The caterers are asking about the seating arrangement for Saturday's dinner. The housekeeper's voice drifted from the doorway. Mrs. Devi, the name felt like a beautiful lie she'd been telling herself for so long. She'd almost believed it. Tell them the usual configuration. Paulette, Mr. Devi prefers his associates near the windows. Camilla's voice came out smooth, practiced. The perfect wife, giving perfect instructions for another perfect evening that would leave her feeling hollow. She'd given up her dreams of architecture, of creating spaces where people could truly live rather than simply exist. Daniel had said it was temporary, just until his company stabilized. That was 6 years ago. Now she hosted dinners, smiled at his colleagues, wore dresses that cost more than some people's cars, and felt her soul slowly crystallizing into something cold and ornamental. The pregnancy test hidden in her purse seemed to burn through the leather. 2 lines. 2 pink lines that changed everything and nothing simultaneously. She'd taken 3 tests that morning, each one confirming what her body had been whispering for weeks. A baby, their baby. Maybe this would bring back the man she'd married, the one who used to trace her architectural sketches with reverent fingers and call her his dream builder. Camilla had planned everything perfectly. She'd made a reservation at Bellissimo, the restaurant where Daniel had proposed. She'd bought a small box and placed a tiny pair of shoes inside. Tonight, she would tell him, and maybe his eyes would light up the way they used to when he looked at her. Her phone buzzed. Daniel's assistant, Mr. Devi, will be working late. Cancel any evening plans. The words were clinical, efficient, devoid of apology. Camilla stared at the message until the screen went dark, her reflection staring back at her with eyes that had learned not to cry. "It's fine," she whispered to the empty room. "Tomorrow, then." But tonight gnawed at her. Daniel had been distant lately, his touches perfunctory, his kisses landing somewhere near her cheek rather than her lips. He came home smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't hers, with explanations about client meetings that stretched into the small hours of morning. She'd been a fool. Love had made her blind, and marriage had made her complicit in her own erasure. The benefit gala she was supposed to attend had been cancelled due to the coordinator's family emergency. Camilla had informed Daniel's assistant, but perhaps the message hadn't reached him in his marathon of meetings. She could surprise him, bring dinner to his office like she used to in the early days when his company was just a dream and a rented room above a coffee shop. The driver wasn't available, so Camilla drove herself through the evening traffic. A bag of Daniel's favorite food from the Thai place he loved warming the passenger seat. The city lights blurred past, each one a small life she'd never know, small freedoms she'd traded for security. The building was mostly dark when she arrived, just a few windows glowing like distant stars. She used her keycard for the private elevator, her heart already softening toward him. He worked so hard. She could be more understanding. Marriage was compromise, wasn't it? The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse office suite. Soft music played from somewhere inside. Not the classical music Daniel preferred for working, but something slower, more intimate. Camilla's steps faltered. She heard the laugh first, a woman's laugh, light and triumphant. Then Daniel's voice, low and hungry, in a way it hadn't been with her in months. "You're incredible, Lysandra. Absolutely incredible." The bag slipped from Camilla's fingers, Thai food containers tumbling across the marble. But she didn't notice. She was walking, her feet carrying her forward even as her mind screamed at her to turn back, to run, to not see what she was about to see. The office door was ajar. Through the gap, she saw them. Daniel, her husband, the man who'd promised her forever beneath a canopy of cherry blossoms, was pressed against his desk, his shirt unbuttoned, and wrapped around him like a serpent was Lysandra Beaumont, the woman he'd introduced as a business partner just 3 weeks ago at a dinner party, where Camilla had smiled and served wine and played the perfect hostess. Lysandra's dress was pooled on the floor. Daniel's hands were in her hair, and they were kissing with the kind of desperate passion that told Camilla this wasn't the first time. This was practiced, familiar. This was betrayal that had grown roots. The sound that escaped Camilla's throat was barely human. It was the death rattle of every belief she'd held sacred. They sprang apart. Daniel's face went white, then red. But it was Lysandra's reaction that carved itself into Camilla's memory. The other woman smiled, actually smiled, slow and victorious, as she reached for her dress without a trace of shame. "Camilla, I can explain," Daniel started, but his hands were still shaking with desire, and his lips were still swollen from another woman's mouth. "Don't." Camilla's voice came from somewhere deep and ancient, a place beyond tears. "Don't you dare say a single word." Lysandra laughed, actually laughed, as she zipped her dress. "Oh, Daniel, did you really think you could keep us both? She's lovely, really, but darling," she turned to Camilla with eyes like chips of ice. "A man like Daniel needs excitement, passion, not a decorative wife who's forgotten how to be interesting." The room tilted. Camilla gripped the doorframe, her knuckles white. Daniel finally moved, stepping toward her, but there was guilt in his eyes, not love. Guilt and something worse, relief. Relief at being caught, at no longer having to hide. "You were becoming boring, Camilla," he said, and those words landed like bullets. "I built an empire. I needed someone who could match that energy. You gave up. You stopped dreaming. What was I supposed to do?" Something inside Camilla didn't break. It crystallized, became diamond hard and unbreakable. "What were you supposed to do?" she repeated softly. "You were supposed to keep your vows. You were supposed to be a man of honor. But I can see now that I married a beautiful lie." She turned to leave, and Daniel didn't stop her. That hurt worst of all. He just stood there watching her walk away, with the stain of another woman's lipstick on his collar, and not a single word of real apology in his mouth. Camilla walked back to the elevator with her spine straight and her head high. She pressed the button, waited, the doors opened. She stepped inside. Only when the doors closed, only when she was alone in that descending box, did she let her hand drift to her stomach where their child grew, innocent and unknowing. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the life inside her. "I'm so sorry your father is a man who doesn't understand the value of the gifts he's been given." The penthouse was exactly as she'd left it when she returned, perfect, pristine, empty. Camilla packed one suitcase. She took only clothes and the few possessions that had been hers before the marriage. A watch from her late mother, a journal of architectural sketches, a photograph of herself at her college graduation, with hope still bright in her eyes. Her wedding rings she left on the bathroom counter. 2 circles of gold that had promised everything and protected nothing. She walked through each room one final time, memorizing the prison she was escaping. Then she wrote a single note on expensive stationery that bore her married name. "I won't be coming back. Send the divorce papers wherever you want. I want nothing from you except my freedom." She left it on his pillow and walked out of that perfect, poisonous life forever. The bus station was nearly empty at that hour. Camilla bought a ticket to Atlanta, far enough to disappear, close enough to afford. She sat on a hard plastic chair with her suitcase at her feet and her hand on her belly. "We'll survive this," she whispered to her unborn child, to herself, to the universe that had just shattered and reformed around her. "I don't know how, but we will. I promise you that." A single tear traced down her cheek, the only one she would allow herself. Then Camilla Evans straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and waited for the bus that would carry her toward an uncertain future. She was alone. She was betrayed. She was broke. But for the first time in 7 years, she was free, and somewhere inside her, beneath the pain and shock, a small, fierce flame of survival flickered to life. Daniel Deavy had broken her heart, but he wouldn't break her spirit. She wouldn't let him have that victory, too. Chapter 2, The Rebuilding. The bus smelled of stale coffee and other people's exhaustion, but to Camilla it smelled like possibility. She counted her money in the darkness, while other passengers slept, their heads lolling against windows that reflected the highway lights back at them. $847. Everything she'd managed to save secretly over the past year, small bills tucked into books and coat pockets. Insurance against a disaster she'd hoped would never come. Atlanta emerged from the dawn, like a promise written in glass and steel. Camilla pressed her forehead against the cool window and watched the city wake up. Delivery trucks rumbling through empty streets. Early morning joggers appearing like ghosts in the mist. Somewhere in this sprawling maze of humanity, she would carve out a life. The woman at the bus station information desk took one look at her and softened. "You got somewhere to go, honey?" Camilla clutched her suitcase handle. "I'm looking for a women's shelter, just temporary. There's Harmony House 3 blocks north. They're good people." The woman scribbled an address on a piece of paper, then added a second address. "And this is Anouk's cafe. Tell Anouk that Bertie sent you. She's always looking for someone reliable." Harmony House was a converted church with peeling paint and windows that glowed warmly despite the early hour. The director, a woman named Imogen Reeves, with silver-threaded hair and eyes that had seen every variation of human suffering, listened to Camilla's carefully edited story without judgment. "We can give you 2 weeks in the dormitory," Imogen said, stirring honey into tea she'd made without asking if Camilla wanted any. "After that, you'll need to show you're working toward independence. Can you do that?" Camilla wrapped her hands around the warm mug and felt something fierce and determined rise up from the wreckage of her old life. "Yes, I can do that." By afternoon, she had her first job. Anouk Tessier ran her cafe with the precision of a military general and the warmth of a grandmother. She was built like a small boulder, with wild curly hair going grey at the temples and an accent that carried the music of her Haitian childhood. "Bertie says you need work," Anouk said, studying Camilla with eyes that missed nothing. "You look like you've been through hell, child. But do you know how to work?" "I do," Camilla said, meeting her gaze. "I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired," Anouk nodded slowly. "Breakfast and lunch shift. Tips are yours. I pay weekly. You start tomorrow at 5 in the morning. It wasn't until Camilla was outside that she realized she'd been holding her breath. One job, one small victory. She'd built her life once from nothing. She could do it again. The pregnancy made everything harder and more urgent. By the 3rd month, her body was changing in ways she couldn't hide. She added a second job cleaning office buildings at night, her back aching as she pushed vacuum cleaners across endless carpeted floors, while security guards studied their phones and ignored her. Sleep became a luxury she couldn't afford. She would wake at 4:30, dress in the shelter's communal bathroom, walk to the cafe through streets still dark and dangerous. She served coffee to lawyers and nurses and construction workers, her smile bright and her hands steady, even when exhaustion made her vision blur. By her 4th month, Imogen called her into the office. "You're pregnant," she said flatly. Camilla's hand went instinctively to her belly, which was now unmistakably rounded. "Yes, the father. Gone, not coming back." Imogen was quiet for a long moment. "You can stay through the birth. After that, we have family rooms, but there's a waiting list. You understand?" "I'll have my own place by then," Camilla said, with more confidence than she felt. She found a third job sketching portraits of tourists in Piedmont Park on weekends, her architectural training translating easily to quick, flattering charcoals that earned her decent tips. Her hands cramped and her feet swelled, but she drew and smiled and saved every dollar. The divorce papers arrived at the shelter, forwarded from an address she'd given Daniel's lawyer. She signed them on Anouk's desk during her break, her hands steady, her heart somewhere beyond pain. Daniel was remarrying already. Lysandra Beaumont would become Lysandra Devi, in a ceremony that would undoubtedly be featured in all the society pages. Camilla folded the papers carefully and put them in a drawer where she kept important documents. That chapter was closed. Her body had other ideas about timing. The twins arrived early, during a shift at the cafe. Camilla felt the first contraction while pouring coffee for a regular customer, a sharp twist that made her gasp. Anouk took one look at her face and started shouting orders. "Call 911! Get her a chair! Move, move!" But there wasn't time. Camilla's water broke on the cafe floor, and suddenly everything was happening too fast. Anouk held her hand and kept her breathing while customers cleared out and someone screamed instructions from a 911 operator. She gave birth in the back room of the cafe, on a mattress someone had dragged from somewhere, with Anouk and a paramedic named Jericho coaching her through each push. "It's a boy," Jericho announced, and then, moments later, "Another boy, twins." Camilla held her sons against her chest, these tiny, perfect beings who had shared her body and her heartbreak, and wept. They were beautiful. They were hers, and they would never, ever know their father's name until they were old enough to understand that some men aren't worthy of the title. The hospital social worker tried to probe about the father, about child support, about resources. "I don't need anything," Camilla said, holding Matthew in one arm and Michael in the other. "We're fine on our own." Octavia Winters, the nurse who'd helped with their care, lingered after her shift ended. She was a tall woman with locks that fell past her shoulders and hands that moved with gentle competence. "I'm going to give you my number," Octavia said, writing on a piece of paper. "You call me if you need anything, and I mean anything. Babysitting, advice, or just someone to talk to at 3 in the morning when you think you're losing your mind." "Why?" Camilla asked, overwhelmed by kindness from a stranger. Octavia smiled. "Because I was you once. Single mom, scared out of my mind. Someone helped me. Now I help others. That's how this works." True to her word, Octavia became Camilla's first real friend. She showed up with groceries and hand-me-down baby clothes and practical wisdom that no book could teach. She watched the twins while Camilla worked, never asking for payment, waving away Camilla's attempts to compensate her. "You're going to pay it forward someday," Octavia said. "That's payment enough." Camilla moved into a tiny apartment above a laundromat, one room with a bathroom down the hall that she shared with 3 other tenants. It smelled of detergent and had water stains on the ceiling, but it was hers. She arranged her few possessions with care, creating a space where her sons could be safe and loved. At night, after the twins finally slept, Camilla would pull out her old architectural sketches. Her hands, calloused now from work, would move across paper, designing homes for imaginary clients, keeping her dreams alive in graphite and hope. A small firm looking for freelance work posted a listing at the community center. Camilla submitted her portfolio, not expecting anything, but they called her in, impressed by her designs, and offered her small projects, a bathroom renovation, a kitchen redesign. The pay was modest, but it was architecture, her first love. Calling her back, she worked on designs while the twins napped, calculated measurements while they played at her feet, taught herself new software on a donated laptop that Anouk's nephew had given her. Her reputation grew slowly, one satisfied client recommending her to another. By the time the twins were walking, Camilla had saved enough for a better apartment, one with its own bathroom and heat that actually worked. It felt like a palace. She never badmouthed Daniel to her sons. When Matthew asked about his father, Camilla chose her words with care. "Your daddy wasn't ready to be a parent," Sometimes people aren't ready for the responsibilities they're given. But you have me, and I love you enough for two parents. Michael, always the sensitive one, would curl against her side. We don't need a daddy. We have you. But Matthew, more questioning, pressed harder. Did he love you? Camilla thought about those early years, before the marriage had curdled into something toxic. Once in his way, but love isn't always enough if people don't know how to protect it. She built her life brick by brick, project by project, sacrifice by sacrifice. The twins grew strong and confident, never knowing poverty was supposed to feel shameful because their mother carried herself with such dignity. They wore second-hand clothes, like armor, and ate simple meals like feasts because Camilla taught them that richness wasn't about money. It was about character. She watched other women in the park with their husbands, their comfortable lives, their security. Sometimes envy whispered in her ear. But then Matthew would laugh at something Michael said, or both boys would hug her simultaneously, and she knew she'd chosen right. She'd chosen them over comfort. She'd chosen freedom over gold. Her small freelance projects grew into larger contracts. By the time the twins were talking in full sentences, Camilla had incorporated her own firm, Moreau Designs. She'd taken her grandmother's maiden name, leaving Evan behind like a shed skin. This was her rebirth. The boys never knew they'd been born in the back room of a cafe, or that their first home had been a shelter. Camilla made sure their childhoods were filled with library books and park adventures and homemade birthday cakes. They knew they were loved absolutely, and that was all that mattered. Sometimes, in the deepest part of night, when both twins slept peacefully, Camilla would let herself remember Daniel's laugh, the way he used to dance with her in their kitchen. The man he'd been before ambition had corrupted him, and despite everything, despite the betrayal and the abandonment, a traitorous part of her heart still held space for him. She hated that weakness in herself. So she buried it deep, covered it with work and motherhood and survival. Matthew came to her once, holding a photo he'd found tucked in one of her old books. A wedding photo, her in white, Daniel in a dark suit, both of them young and foolish and in love. "Mum, is this our father?" Camilla took the photo, her fingers trembling slightly. She'd thought she'd thrown all of them away. "Yes, baby. That's him." Matthew studied it with serious eyes. "He's looking at you like you're the most important thing in the world." "That was a long time ago," Camilla said softly. "People change. Did he hurt you?" She couldn't lie to her son. "Yes, but that hurt made me stronger. And it gave me you and your brother. So I can't completely regret it." Michael appeared in the doorway, always knowing when his twin needed him. "We'd protect you now, Mum, if he ever came back." Camilla pulled both boys into her arms, these fierce little warriors she'd raised alone. "I know, my loves. I know, but Daniel didn't come back. Years passed, and he remained a ghost. A story she told in careful pieces, a man who existed only in the past tense. She never contacted him for money. Pride wouldn't allow it. Let him think she'd disappeared, that she'd found someone else, that she'd moved on completely. Let him believe whatever eased his conscience. She and her sons would build their own empire, one of honor and hard work and love that didn't come with conditions. And they did. Moreau Designs grew steadily. Camilla's reputation for beautiful, functional spaces that honored both budget and vision spread through Atlanta's architectural community. She worked harder than everyone else, arrived earlier, stayed later, poured everything she had into being the best. But late at night, when exhaustion finally pulled her under, she sometimes dreamed of Daniel. And in those dreams, he was always reaching for her, always too late, always sorry. She would wake with tears on her cheeks and push the dreams away. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. Her sons were her future. Her firm was her purpose. And the past, beautiful, terrible, formative, was exactly where it belonged. Behind her, Chapter 3. The Emperor's Fall. Daniel Devi stood at the window of his penthouse and felt like a king surveying an empty kingdom. The city sparkled below him, a constellation of human ambition and electric dreams. He owned a piece of it now, buildings, contracts, influence that rippled through boardrooms and bank accounts. Everything he'd wanted, everything he'd sacrificed for, and it all tasted like ashes. Lysandra was in the bedroom, probably on the phone, with another of her endless parade of personal shoppers or party planners or whatever title they were using this week for people who helped her spend his money. The wedding had been 6 months ago, featured in every magazine that mattered, photographed from every angle that could make them look powerful and enviable. The photos were beautiful lies. Already, cracks spiderwebbed through their marriage. She'd moved through his life like a hurricane, charming his colleagues at the wedding reception, and then, once the ring was secure on her finger, showing her true nature. The credit card bills were obscene. Designer bags multiplied in closets like rabbits. Every conversation ended in demands for more jewelry, more vacations, more everything. But it wasn't the money that hollowed him out. It was the emptiness where love should have lived. Daniel. Lysandra's voice cut through his thoughts like a blade. I need you to approve this deposit for the yacht rental. Saint-Tropez won't book without confirmation. He turned to face her. She stood in the doorway, wearing a dress that cost more than some people made in months, her beauty sharp and cold as polished marble. When had he thought this was what he wanted? Cancel it, he said quietly. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. Excuse me, cancel it. We're not going. We most certainly are. I've already told everyone, then untell them. Daniel's voice hardened. I have obligations here. Real work. Lysandra's laugh was like breaking glass. Real work? You mean those tedious meetings where you all sit around congratulating yourselves? Please. You're just angry because I won't play the adoring little wife like she did. The mention of Camilla landed like a punch. Daniel's jaw clenched. Don't what? Mention your boring ex-wife who couldn't keep your attention for more than a few years. At least I'm exciting, Daniel. At least I make you feel alive. But she didn't. That was the terrible truth crystallizing in his chest. She made him feel exhausted, used, fundamentally alone. The fights escalated. Lysandra attended parties without him, came home with champagne on her breath and strange men's cologne on her clothes. When he confronted her, she laughed in his face. You're a hypocrite, she said, her words slurring slightly. You cheated on your wife to get me. Did you think I was the faithful type? He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but the words died in his throat. She was right. He'd destroyed his marriage with Camilla for this woman who now destroyed him nightly with her casual cruelties. His best friend, Theron Castellan, watched the dissolution with grim sympathy. They'd been friends since college, through every stage of Daniel's rise, and Theron had been the only one to speak honestly at the wedding. You're making a mistake, Theron had said quietly. Camilla loved you. This one loves what you can give her. There's a difference. Daniel had ignored him then. Now Theron's words haunted him nightly. They met for drinks at their usual bar, a quiet place where the bartender knew their orders and the music was soft enough for conversation. She's bankrupting me emotionally, Daniel admitted, staring into his whiskey. Maybe financially too at this rate, Theron shook his head. Get out! Gut your losses and get out. I destroyed my marriage with Camilla for her. If I leave now, it means I ruined everything for nothing. You ruined everything for nothing already, brother. Theron's voice was gentle, but firm. The question is whether you're going to compound the mistake or correct it. But pride kept Daniel trapped. To leave would be to admit failure, to acknowledge that he'd thrown away something precious for something worthless. So he stayed, and the marriage festered around him. Lysandra's affairs became less discreet. She stopped pretending to care about appearances. Daniel would come home to find her entertaining friends in their living room, her laughter too loud, her touches too familiar. When he objected, she shrugged. You're never here anyway. What does it matter? It mattered because his reputation was crumbling. Colleagues who'd once respected him now pitied him. Whispers followed him through galas and fundraisers. Poor Daniel Davy, brilliant with numbers but can't manage his own household. The divorce came eventually, ugly and public. Lysandra hired lawyers who circled like sharks, smelling blood in the water. She demanded half of everything, claimed she'd sacrificed her own career for him, painted herself as the wronged woman in every deposition. Daniel's lawyers advised him to fight. She was unfaithful. We can prove it. But he was so tired of fighting. Tired of everything. He settled, signing away enormous portions of his wealth just to be free of her. $340 million evaporated overnight, along with property and assets he'd spent years accumulating. Theron drove him home from the final court appearance. They didn't speak until they reached the penthouse. "You had gold and traded it for glitter," Theron said finally. "I hope to God you've learned the difference now." Daniel had. But the lesson had cost him everything that mattered. The penthouse felt cavernous without Lysandra's chaos filling it. He should have been relieved. Instead, he wandered through rooms that echoed with his own footsteps and felt like a ghost in his own life. He tried dating. Beautiful women who smiled at his wealth and laughed at his jokes and made him feel nothing. They weren't Camilla. None of them were Camilla. He'd hired investigators early on, trying to find her, but Camilla had disappeared completely. No forwarding address, no social media presence, nothing. It was as if she'd been erased from existence, and maybe that's what she'd wanted. To erase every trace of him from her life. The thought kept him awake at night. He kept one photograph hidden in his desk drawer. Camilla on their honeymoon in Santorini, standing at the edge of a cliff with the Aegean Sea spread behind her like a blue silk scarf. Her head was thrown back in laughter, her eyes bright with joy and love and absolute trust in him. He'd destroyed that trust, shattered it like cheap glass, and walked away thinking he could find something better. Theron found him one night staring at that photo, whiskey glass dangling from numb fingers. "Still?" Theron asked quietly. "Every day." Daniel's voice cracked. "I think about her every single day. Have you tried to find her?" "She doesn't want to be found. She made that clear when she left everything behind just to get away from me." Theron sat down across from him. "So what? You're just going to spend the rest of your life mourning what you destroyed? What else is there? Making something good from the wreckage. You can't fix the past, Daniel. But you can stop letting it poison your future." Daniel wanted to believe that. But believing would mean forgiving himself, and he wasn't sure he deserved forgiveness. His empire recovered eventually. He rebuilt what Lysandra had taken, made smarter investments, learned to be more cautious. But success felt meaningless without someone to share it with. Penthouses and bank accounts and power, they were empty victories that echoed in the hollow space where his heart used to live. He attended a fundraiser where a young couple danced together, completely absorbed in each other despite the crowd around them. The way the man looked at his wife, protective, proud, adoring, made Daniel's chest constrict painfully. That's how he'd looked at Camilla once. Before he'd forgotten the value of treasure and chased fool's gold instead. A therapist named Dr. Seraphine Holt became his last desperate attempt at salvation. She was older, sharp-eyed, and refused to let him hide behind excuses. "You destroyed your marriage," she said during their third session. "You admit that. But what you're really struggling with is that you destroyed yourself in the process. You became someone you don't recognize." "I don't know how to live with what I did," Daniel admitted. "Then don't live with it. Live beyond it. Make amends where you can. Change what's changeable. Accept what isn't." She leaned forward. "But most importantly, stop punishing yourself with isolation. That's not penance. That's just continuing the cowardice that got you here. The sessions helped, marginally. He learned to function again, to go through the motions of his life without the constant weight of self-loathing crushing him. But he never stopped missing Camilla, never stopped wondering where she was, if she was happy, if she ever thought of him. Birthdays were the worst. He spent them alone, refusing invitations from friends who'd given up trying to cheer him. On his most recent birthday, he'd stood in front of that photo of Camilla in Santorini and spoken to it like she could hear him. "I'm so sorry for all of it, for being too stupid to recognize what I had until I'd already destroyed it. I hope you're happy, wherever you are. I hope you found someone who deserves you. I hope you never waste a single thought on me. Because God knows I don't deserve your memories." The photo smiled back at him, frozen in a moment when they'd both believed in forever. Theron insisted he start living again. "You're not dead yet, brother. Stop acting like you are. But Daniel felt dead inside. He went through the motions, work, meetings, obligations. He donated to charities, funded scholarships, built his reputation as a reformed man who'd learned from his mistakes. People admired his comeback story, his resilience. None of them knew he was hollow. A shell of success wrapped around emptiness. He dreamed of Camilla constantly. Dreams where she stood just out of reach, always turning away, always leaving. Dreams where he tried to apologize but no words would come. Dreams where she looked at him with those trusting eyes from the honeymoon photo and he had to watch himself betray her over and over again. He woke from these dreams, gasping, reaching for her across empty sheets. The years accumulated. His hair showed grey at the temples. Lines etched themselves around his eyes from sleepless nights and regret. He built his empire back to its former glory and then beyond, proving to everyone except himself that he was still relevant, still powerful, still something other than a man who'd thrown away love for lust. But in quiet moments, when the city lights blurred below his windows and the penthouse pressed in around him with its expensive emptiness, Daniel Devi faced the truth he'd been running from. He'd had everything. A woman who loved him unconditionally, who'd sacrificed her own dreams to support his, who'd looked at him like he'd hung the stars just for her. And he'd destroyed it all because he was too immature to understand that passion fades. But love, real love, the kind Camilla had offered him, that endures if you protect it. He'd learned the difference between glitter and gold. He just learned it far too late. Now all he had was money, success, and the ghost of the woman he'd loved and lost by his own hand. Some nights he thought that was exactly the hell he deserved. Other nights he wished desperately for one more chance, to apologize, to explain, to see her one more time, even if just to confirm she was happy and whole without him. But chances like that didn't come. Life didn't work that way. So Daniel Devi sat in his throne of success and felt like a beggar, staring at a photograph of the only woman he'd ever truly loved, and whispered apologies to the empty air. He'd become everything he'd wanted to be and lost everything that mattered. Chapter 4. The voice that broke the silence. The Tuesday meeting was supposed to be routine, just another presentation about the downtown tower redesign that Daniel had barely paid attention to for weeks. He sat in his office reviewing quarterly reports, while his assistant Isolde Vermeer managed the conference call setup in the adjacent room. The Devi Tower had been his pride once, a steel and glass monument to his ambition. Now it needed renovation, modernization, something to make it relevant again. Several architectural firms had submitted proposals, and today they were reviewing the finalists. Mr. Devi. Isolde appeared in his doorway, tablet in hand. "The conference line is ready. We have representatives from 3 firms on hold." Daniel barely looked up from his papers. "Put it on speaker in here. I'll listen while I work." It was dismissive, he knew, but most of these presentations blurred together. The same promises of innovation, wrapped in the same architectural jargon. He'd let his team make the final decision. Isolde set up the speaker system and patched through the first firm. A man's voice droned through technical specifications. Daniel signed documents and half listened, his mind already moving to his afternoon obligations. The second firm was equally forgettable. Daniel found himself staring out his window at the city below, thinking about nothing in particular, when Isolde's voice interrupted. "Sir, there's been a confusion with the connections. Give me one moment to sort it out." He waved her away, not caring. These technical glitches happened all the time. Then he heard it, a woman's voice, clear and confident mid-sentence. "The structural integrity while improving natural light flow. We're proposing a grid system that honors the building's original architecture," but Daniel's pen stopped moving. His entire body went rigid. That voice. He knew that voice the way he knew his own heartbeat. It had been part of his life for 7 years, absent for twice that long. But it was carved into his memory like scripture, essentially creating pockets of green space that serve both aesthetic and practical purposes. The preliminary models show a reduction in energy consumption of— Stop! Daniel's voice came out strangled. Stop the call! Isolde looked at him in alarm. Sir, who is that? The woman speaking. Who is she? Isolde checked her tablet, confused. That's not on the line yet. That must be. Oh, there's a crossed wire. That's the third firm's lead architect. They weren't supposed to be patched in for another 10 minutes. What's her name? Daniel stood up so fast, his chair rolled backward and hit the credenza. His phone slipped from his hand, the glass screen splintering across the marble floor, but he didn't notice. Didn't care, Isolde scrolled frantically. Camilla Moreau, from Moreau Designs. Sir, are you all right? You've gone pale, Moreau. Not Evan, she'd changed her name. But that voice, he'd know it if he heard it in a crowd of thousands, in a hurricane, in his dying breath. Get me everything on that firm, everything, and get me that woman's contact information, now. Isolde hurried out, shooting worried glances back at him. Daniel gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white, his breathing shallow. She was alive. She was here. After all the investigators, all the dead ends, all the years of searching, she'd been here in his city, building a life under a different name, while he tortured himself with memories. The voice had cut out when Isolde disconnected the crossed line. Daniel felt its absence like a physical wound. He needed to hear it again, needed confirmation that he hadn't hallucinated from wishful thinking and exhaustion. His hands shook as he tried to pick up his shattered phone. The screen was completely destroyed, spiderweb cracks making it unusable. He grabbed his desk phone instead, jabbing at buttons with trembling fingers. Get me a new phone. Immediately he barked at whoever answered. And tell Isolde I need that information 5 minutes ago. The next 15 minutes were the longest of his life. He paced his office like a caged animal, unable to sit, unable to think about anything except that voice. Was it really her? Could it be a coincidence? Someone who sounded similar? But no. He'd been married to that voice, had fallen asleep to it and woken to it, had heard it whisper love and cry out in passion, and at the very end speak with devastating calm as it told him she was leaving. Isolde returned with a laptop and a nervous expression. Sir, I've pulled up the Moreau Designs website, and here's the contact information you requested. Daniel grabbed the laptop so roughly she flinched. His eyes devoured the screen. There she was. The photo on the About page showed a woman in her mid-40s, her hair natural and beautiful, pulled back in a professional style. She wore a simple suit, and a smile that was confident but cautious, as if she'd learned to guard her joy. Fine lines around her eyes spoke of years he'd missed, but it was unmistakably her. Camilla, his Camilla. Except she wasn't his anymore, had never been his really. He'd treated her like a possession until she'd proven she was a person with the power to leave. Her office number is there, Isolde said quietly, and her email. Sir, you're shaking. Should I call Dr. Holt? No. Daniel's voice came from somewhere deep and desperate. No, I need a minute. Isolde left tactfully, closing the door behind her. Daniel collapsed into his chair and stared at the photo of Camilla until his vision blurred. She looked successful, strong, like she'd built herself into something remarkable without him. The bio listed her projects, awards, community involvement. She'd created an entire life, and he knew nothing about it. Had she married? The bio didn't mention a husband, but it also didn't mention being single. What if there was someone? What if she'd found love again, while he'd spent every relationship comparing women to her ghost? His phone, the new one someone had brought while he was lost in the website, sat on his desk like a loaded weapon. He picked it up 6 times and set it down 6 times, his courage failing each attempt. What would he even say? Hello, I'm the man who destroyed you. Remember me? But he had to try. The universe had given him this impossible gift, her voice cutting through static and years and silence after he'd stopped believing in miracles. He couldn't waste it. Daniel's hands trembled as he dialed her office number. It rang once, twice, his heart hammered so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. Moreau Designs, this is Gretchen speaking. How may I help you? A receptionist, of course. I need to speak with Ms. Moreau. Camilla Moreau. May I ask who's calling? Daniel Devi. There was a pause. Had Camilla told her staff about him? Did they know his name as the villain in her origin story? I'm afraid Miss Moreau is unavailable at the moment. May I take a message? Unavailable. Was she really unavailable, or was this a polite way of saying she wouldn't take his call? Daniel closed his eyes. Please tell her I called. Tell her. Tell her I heard her voice, and I need to speak with her. Please, it's important. I'll pass along the message, Mr. Devi. The line went dead. Daniel sat there holding the phone, feeling like he'd just jumped off a cliff with no assurance there was water below to catch him. Hours passed. He couldn't work, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at his phone and will it to ring. Isolde brought him coffee he didn't drink and lunch he didn't touch. The afternoon sun crawled across his office floor, each minute an eternity. By evening, hope had curdled into desperation. She wasn't going to call back. Why would she? He'd destroyed her life, abandoned her when she needed him most. She probably deleted his message with satisfaction, glad to ignore him the way he'd ignored her pain. Daniel pulled up her voicemail recording on the website, a standard professional greeting, but in her voice. He played it 7 times just to hear her say, "You've reached Camilla Moreau at Moreau Designs. Please leave a detailed message, and I'll return your call as soon as possible." He called the number, waited for the beep, and then, because he had nothing left to lose, he spoke. "Miss Moreau, Camilla, this is Daniel. Daniel Devi. I don't even know where to start. I heard your voice today during a conference call. A technical error patched you through early. Just 12 seconds. But I heard you, and His voice cracked. He pressed his fist against his mouth, trying to maintain control. It's been 20 years. 20 years of wondering where you were, if you were happy, if you'd forgiven me for being the worst kind of fool. I don't have any right to ask anything of you. I know that. But please call me back just once. I need to hear your voice again. I need to know you're real and not just a memory that's been haunting me for 2 decades. Please." He left his number, hung up, and then buried his face in his hands and wept for the first time since the day she'd walked out of his life. Outside his windows, the city lights flickered to life one by one, small fires against the darkness. Daniel Devi sat in his empire of glass and steel and felt like he'd finally found something, worth more than all of it combined. The possibility of Camilla's voice answering his, even if just to tell him goodbye one final time, he would take it. He would take any piece of her she was willing to give. His phone sat silent on the desk, dark and unforgiving, and Daniel waited, hope and desperation tangled in his chest, for a voice that might never speak to him again. But at least now he knew she existed. She was real. She was close, and that knowledge was both a gift and a torture more exquisite than anything he'd endured in all the empty years before. Chapter 5. The Return of the Ghost. Camilla sat in her car in the office parking garage, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The voicemail notification glowed on her phone screen like a tiny bomb. She'd listened to her receptionist's message 3 times now, each repetition making the situation more real and more impossible. "Daniel Devi called for you. Said he heard your voice on a conference call. Wants you to call him back. Said it's important." Daniel. After 20 years of silence, after building an entire life in the spaces where he used to exist, after teaching herself not to flinch when she heard his name on the news or saw his company's logo on buildings throughout the city. Her hands trembled. She released the steering wheel and pressed them flat against her thighs, forcing herself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The meditation techniques Octavia had taught her all those years ago when panic attacks had been a daily visitor. "You're fine," she whispered to herself. "You're successful. You're strong. One phone call from a ghost doesn't undo everything you've built." But her body didn't believe her words. Her heart raced like she'd run a marathon. Sweat prickled at her hairline despite the car's air conditioning. She should delete the message. Block his number. Forget he'd ever tried to reach across the chasm of years to find her. She owed him nothing, not her time, not her voice. Certainly not her forgiveness. But her finger hovered over the voicemail icon, hesitated, then pressed. His voice filled her car, and 20 years collapsed into nothing. "Ms. Moreau, Camilla, this is Daniel." "Daniel Davy," she heard the tremor in his voice, the barely controlled emotion. The crack when he said her name the second time, as if testing it on his tongue after decades of silence. "Please call me back. Just once. I need to hear your voice again. I need to know you're real and not just a memory that's been haunting me for 2 decades. The message ended. Camilla sat in the darkness of the parking garage and felt tears slide down her cheeks before she'd even registered she was crying. He'd been haunted by her? While she'd raised their sons alone, worked 3 jobs, built herself from wreckage into something whole, he'd been haunted. The anger came then, hot and welcome. She grabbed onto it like a lifeline. "How dare you?" she said to the empty car, to the voicemail, to the universe that had delivered this particular cruelty. "How dare you come back now when I've finally found peace?" But was it peace? Or had it been the careful burial of feelings she'd never properly dealt with? The question rattled around her skull as she drove home, taking back roads automatically, her hands performing the familiar movements while her mind spun in chaos. Home was a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, nothing like the penthouse she'd fled from, but it was hers, truly hers. Every piece of furniture chosen with care, every wall painted in colors she loved, every room holding memories of raising her sons into good men. Matthew and Michael were both at evening study groups, the house blessedly empty. Camilla poured herself a glass of wine she didn't drink and stood in her kitchen, staring at nothing. The wedding photo Matthew had found years ago still lived in a drawer upstairs. She'd never had the courage to throw it away. That last piece of evidence that Daniel Devi had once looked at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. She climbed the stairs slowly, opened the drawer and pulled out the photo. They looked so young, so stupidly, brilliantly certain that love conquered everything. Daniel's arm around her waist, her head tipped back in laughter, both of them glowing with happiness and ignorance. Who were we? Camilla asked the photograph. Did we ever really exist, or was it all just beautiful fiction? Her phone buzzed. A text from Matthew. "Study session running late. Don't wait up. Love you, Mom." She texted back a heart emoji and set the phone down before she could do something foolish, like call Daniel back, like open doors that had taken her decades to lock. But the voicemail haunted her through dinner, through her evening shower, through the attempt at reading a novel that couldn't hold her attention. His voice echoed in her memory, and damn him, she could hear the genuine pain in it. She didn't call him back that night, or the next morning, or the day after that. Instead, she let him wait the way she'd waited during their marriage, for his attention, his affection, his choice to come home to her instead of finding excitement elsewhere. Let him know what it felt like to exist in limbo, hoping for something that might never come. Petty? Perhaps, but satisfying. 3 days after his first message, another came. Shorter this time. "Camilla, I understand if you never want to speak to me. But please know that hearing your voice again was the most significant thing that's happened to me in 20 years. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. That's all I really wanted to say." And damn it, she believed him. That night, Matthew found her sitting on the back porch, wineglass in hand, staring at stars she couldn't really see through the light pollution. "Mom, you okay?" She looked at her son, tall, thoughtful, so much like his father in bone structure, but with her eyes and her capacity for empathy. "Do you ever wonder about him?" "Your father?" Matthew settled onto the step beside her. "Sometimes. Mostly, I wonder if he wonders about us. About what could have been. He doesn't know you exist," Camilla said quietly. "I never told him I was pregnant." "I know." "You've said." Matthew picked at the wood of the porch. "Do you regret that?" "Not telling him? I don't know. I regret many things, but having you and your brother isn't one of them. That's not what I asked, smart boy. Too smart sometimes." Camilla sighed. He reached out. "A few days ago." "Left messages." Matthew's head snapped toward her. "Wait, what? Her father? How did he find you?" "A random chance. A conference call mix-up." She explained the situation in brief, clinical sentences that didn't convey the earthquake it had caused in her carefully constructed life. "Are you going to respond?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to ignore him forever. Part of me—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "Part of you still loves him," Matthew said gently. "Mom, I've seen that photo upstairs. I've watched you sometimes when you think no one's looking, and you get this expression like you're somewhere else, somewhere painful. It's okay to still have feelings for him. It's weak. It's human." Matthew put his arm around her shoulders. "You taught me and Michael that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about how you rebuild after you break. You've rebuilt yourself into someone amazing. But maybe there are some broken pieces you can't fix alone." Camilla leaned into her son, grateful beyond words for his wisdom. "When did you get so smart?" "Learned from the best." That night, after Matthew had gone to bed, Camilla did something she'd sworn she wouldn't do. She looked Daniel up online, scrolling through articles and photos, piecing together the life he'd lived without her. She found the news about his divorce from Lysandra, the financial losses, the recovery. He looked older in recent photos, grayer, with lines etched deep around his eyes, but still handsome, still the man who'd once made her heart race with just a smile. She hated that he could still affect her. Hated that 20 years and so much pain hadn't killed whatever stubborn part of her heart still responded to his face. At midnight, she made a decision. She would call him back, not because she forgave him. Forgiveness required seeing him as someone other than the man who'd destroyed her, but because she was curious, because closure, real closure, might require one final conversation. And maybe, just maybe, because Matthew was right. Some broken pieces needed acknowledgement before they could fully heal. She dialed before courage failed her. He answered on the first ring, voice rough with sleep or emotion or both. "Hello! This is Camilla Moreau." "You called me." Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Camilla, God, I didn't think you'd call back." "I almost didn't." Her voice was professional, distant. A weapon she wielded with precision. "You mentioned the conference call. About the DV Tower project." "To hell with the project." The words came out fierce, desperate. "I don't care about the tower. I need to see you, please, just once. Mr. Devi, Daniel, please, just Daniel." "Mr. Devi," she continued firmly. "I don't think that's appropriate. I'll come to you, anywhere. I'll wait as long as it takes. Camilla, please." 20 years? Don't you think we deserve one conversation? "I don't think you deserve anything from me." The words landed hard. She heard him exhale shakily. "You're right. I don't, but I'm asking anyway. Not as the man I was, but as the man I've been trying to become ever since you left." Her grip tightened on the phone. 1 hour, coffee, public place. "And this doesn't mean anything beyond one conversation." "Yes, anything. When?" "Saturday, 10 in the morning. There's a cafe called Cornerstone on Peachtree. Do you know it?" "I'll find it." "And Daniel?" She let his name slide from her mouth for the first time in 2 decades. "Don't expect forgiveness. I'm not that woman anymore. I don't expect anything. I just want to see that you're real." They hung up. Camilla sat in the darkness of her bedroom and wondered what the hell she'd just agreed to. Saturday arrived too quickly, and not quickly enough. Camilla changed clothes 4 times, hating herself for caring what she wore. She finally settled on a simple dress and jacket, professional, put together, armor disguised as fashion. Michael drove her to the cafe. She'd mentioned the meeting casually, not wanting to make it a bigger deal than necessary, but both twins had picked up on her anxiety. "You want me to come in with you?" Michael offered as they pulled up to Cornerstone. "Just sit nearby in case you need backup?" "No, baby. I need to do this alone." "Mom," Michael's hand covered hers on the door handle. "Whatever happens in there, remember who you are. Remember, what you've survived. He doesn't get to shake your foundation unless you let him. She kissed her son's cheek. I raised you too well. You're making it hard to wallow in drama. That's the point. She watched him drive away before entering the cafe, gathering her courage like a cloak around her shoulders. And there, at a table near the window, was Daniel. He stood when he saw her, and Camilla's breath caught despite all her preparation. He'd aged, yes, but in a way that somehow made him more attractive. The grey at his temples, the deeper lines around his eyes giving his face character. It had lacked in his youth, but it was the way he looked at her that stopped her heart. Like she was water in a desert, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for decades. For just a moment, she was that young woman again, standing at an altar promising forever to a man who'd promised it back. Then reality crashed through nostalgia. This was the man who'd broken those promises, shattered them like they meant nothing. She wouldn't forget that. Couldn't forget that. Camilla walked to the table, her head high, her expression carefully neutral. "Hello, Daniel." He looked like he might cry, or fall to his knees, or both. "Camilla, God, Camilla, you're really here." She sat down before her legs could betray her. "You asked for 1 hour. The clock starts now." And so began the conversation that would change everything, though neither of them knew it yet. All they knew was this. 20 years had passed, but some silences spoke louder than words, and some ghosts demanded acknowledgement before they could finally mercifully rest. Chapter 6. The Meeting of Souls and Scars. The coffee tasted like regret, Camilla thought. Or maybe that was just the bitterness coating her tongue as she sat across from the man who'd once been her entire world. Daniel hadn't touched his cup. He just stared at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. She wanted to squirm under that gaze, to look away, but she'd learned years ago that showing vulnerability was dangerous. So she met his eyes steadily and waited for him to speak first. "You look incredible," he finally said, voice rough. "Even more beautiful than I remembered." "Flattery is wasted on me now." Camilla wrapped both hands around her coffee mug, needing something to anchor her. "You said you needed to see me. I'm here. What do you want, Daniel?" He flinched at the coldness in her voice. Good. Let him feel a fraction of what she'd endured. "I want to apologize, properly. Not the pathetic excuse I gave you that night, but a real apology." "Go ahead, then." "I'm sorry." The words came out cracked, like something breaking. "I'm so goddamn sorry, Camilla. For everything. For betraying you. For being too stupid and selfish to realize what I had until I'd already destroyed it. For letting you walk out, believing you were anything less than the most precious thing in my life." Camilla took a slow sip of coffee, using the moment to control the emotions threatening to surface. "You're right. Those words mean nothing. You apologize for being stupid and selfish, as if those were temporary conditions you suffered from, rather than choices you made. You didn't accidentally fall into bed with another woman, Daniel. You chose her, repeatedly. Then you chose to humiliate me when I caught you." "I know." He leaned forward, hands spread on the table like an offering. "I know, and there's no excuse. I was weak, insecure, terrified of the depth of what I felt for you, so I destroyed it before it could destroy me." "How convenient for you. Destroy it first, grieve later." Her laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Did it work? Did ruining us save you from whatever you were so afraid of?" "Oh, no." The single word carried the weight of decades. "It cost me everything. The marriage to Lysandra lasted less than 2 years. She took half my money and whatever dignity I had left. I've spent 20 years trying to find you, apologize to you, see if you were okay." "I'm fine." Camilla's voice could have cut steel. "I built a successful firm, raised myself up from nothing, became someone I'm proud of. All without you." She saw the words land like blows. Saw him absorb them, accept them. "I'm glad, truly, you deserved so much better than what I gave you." "I did. I do." She set her coffee down carefully. "So why am I here? What is this really about?" Assuaging your guilt? Seeking absolution so you can sleep better at night? Daniel shook his head slowly. Maybe once that's what I would have wanted. But Camilla, I've changed. I've spent years in therapy trying to understand why I self-destructed. I've rebuilt my life, donated fortunes, tried to become someone worthy of the second chance I know I don't deserve. And I'm not asking you to take me back or forgive me or anything except, please, let me make amends. Amends. She tested the word. What does that even mean? Whatever you need. Whatever would help. I'll do anything you ask. The waitress approached to refill their coffees. They fell silent until she left, the interruption giving Camilla time to study this older Daniel. He wore his success more quietly now, less flash and more substance. His watch was expensive, but not ostentatious. His suit fit well, but wasn't trying to impress. The arrogance that had hardened his features in their marriage had eroded, leaving something gentler behind. But gentleness didn't erase betrayal. Tell me about the divorce, Camilla said when they were alone again. From Lysandra, Daniel's jaw tightened. It was brutal. She showed her true colors immediately after the wedding. Affairs, shopping sprees, public humiliation. Everything I deserved, honestly. The universe giving me exactly what I'd given you. Poetic justice. Yes, he met her eyes without flinching. I lost more than money in that divorce. I lost whatever illusions I'd had about myself, about what kind of man I'd become. My best friend Theron told me at the wedding that I'd had gold and traded it for glitter. He was right. Your friend sounds wise. He is. He's also been telling me for 20 years that I'm an idiot for throwing you away. Daniel's hands clenched on the table. Camilla, I need you to understand something. Not a day has passed, not one single day, where I haven't thought about you. Wondered where you were, hoped you were happy. You lived in my chest like a permanent ache, reminding me of what real love felt like and how spectacularly I'd failed it. Camilla felt her carefully constructed walls tremble. This raw honesty was harder to defend against than his earlier shallow apologies. If you missed me so much, why didn't you try harder to find me? Well, I did try. I hired investigators. They found nothing. You disappeared completely, and I thought maybe that's what you needed. To erase me from your existence so thoroughly that even trying to contact you was a violation. It was. She said it firmly, but inside, something twisted. He'd respected her silence. Somehow that made it both better and worse. They sat in uncomfortable quiet for a long moment. Around them, the cafe buzzed with other people's ordinary dramas, first dates and business meetings and friends catching up. Normal life happening, while Camilla felt like she was standing in wreckage. I've moved on, she said finally. I'm not that woman you married anymore. I can see that. You're stronger, wiser. His eyes traced her face like he was memorizing it, more guarded. Life taught me to guard myself. I taught you that. The pain in his voice was palpable. I took someone trusting and open, and taught her that love was dangerous. God, Camilla, if I could go back. But you can't. She cut him off before he could spiral into hypotheticals. None of us can. We live with our choices and their consequences. Then let me live with mine, by doing something good. Please. He reached across the table slowly, telegraphing the movement, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand covered hers. The touch sent electricity through her nervous system, and she hated her body for responding. Give me a chance to prove I've changed, not to win you back. I'm not that delusional, but to show you that your faith in me once upon a time wasn't completely misplaced. Camilla stared at their hands. His larger, scared in new ways she didn't recognize, covering hers with a gentleness that felt foreign and familiar simultaneously. She should pull away, should maintain distance, should protect herself. But Matthew's words echoed in her mind. Some broken pieces can't heal alone. She pulled her hand back, slowly, deliberately, saw the flash of hurt in Daniel's eyes before he hid it. If I agreed to let you make amends, it would be entirely on my terms. Hope sparked in his expression. Whatever terms you set, I'll meet them. You don't even know what they are yet. I don't care. Name them. Camilla pulled a napkin from the dispenser and borrowed a pen from her purse. She wrote carefully, deliberately, creating conditions that would test whether his remorse was genuine or just another performance. Number 1, she said as she wrote. You work at my firm for 6 months. Junior level. No special treatment. You learn what it's like to build something from the ground up like I had to. Daniel nodded. Yes, when do I start? Number 2, you donate $50 million to organizations that support single mothers. Not in your name. In mine. His eyebrows rose slightly at the amount, but he nodded again. Done. Number 3, you write a public letter acknowledging your past mistakes. You don't name me or give details that would identify me, but you own what you did. You show the world that success doesn't excuse moral failure. I can do that. Number 4, we attend family therapy with a counselor of my choosing. You don't get to hide behind charm or excuses. You do the real work of understanding why you destroyed us. Agreed. Camilla paused before writing the 5th condition. This one was the most important, the one that would reveal everything. Number 5, you meet the 2 people I value most in the world, and you earn their respect. Not their forgiveness, not their affection, their respect. If you can't do that, none of the rest matters. Daniel studied the napkin she slid across to him. His eyes moved over each condition, lingering on the last one. The 2 people you value most. Who are they? You'll find out when you've completed the first 4 conditions. He looked up at her, and for a moment she saw fear in his eyes. Fear that whoever she loved most would reject him, would prove he was irredeemable. Good, let him be afraid. Let him understand what it felt like to be judged and found wanting. I accept, he said quietly. All 5 conditions. When do we begin? A Monday. 8 a.m., my office. Camilla stood, needing to escape before her composure cracked. Don't be late. And Daniel, if you fail even one of these conditions, you're out of my life forever. No second chances beyond this second chance. He stood too, and for a heartbeat, they stood close enough that she could smell his cologne, different from what he'd worn during their marriage. More mature, less aggressively masculine. I won't fail. I promise you that. Your promises don't mean much to me anymore. She said it without heat, just simple truth. Your actions will have to speak for you now. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Camilla? Ah. She looked back, and the expression on his face nearly undid her. Gratitude and grief and desperate hope all tangled together. Thank you. For this, for not deleting my messages, for showing up today, for giving me any chance at all. She didn't respond. Couldn't, because if she opened her mouth, she might tell him things she wasn't ready to admit, even to herself. Like how seeing him had shaken her foundation. Like how part of her had never stopped loving him despite everything. Like how terrifying it was to let him back into her orbit, even conditionally. So she just nodded once and walked out into the bright morning, where Michael waited in the car with anxious eyes. How did it go? Her son asked as she slid into the passenger seat. Camilla fastened her seatbelt and stared straight ahead. I either just made the wisest decision of my life or the most foolish. Time will tell which. Michael pulled into traffic, shooting her worried glances. Mom, are you okay? No, she admitted, but I will be. One way or another, I'll be okay, because she'd survived Daniel Devi once before, when she was younger and weaker and had nothing. Now she was strong, established, armor-plated by years of hard-won independence. If he wanted back into her life, even the edges of it, he would have to prove every day that he deserved to be there. And if he failed, well, she'd survived his destruction before. She could survive his absence again. The question was whether she could survive his return. That, Camilla thought as Atlanta rolled past her window, was something she'd discover in the months ahead. For better or worse, the door she'd kept locked for 20 years had cracked open. What came through it next would determine whether she'd been brave or just a different kind of fool. Chapter 7. The 5 Conditions. Daniel arrived at Moreau, Designs 15 minutes early on Monday morning, carrying coffee he'd bought from a shop 2 blocks away. The office was small compared to his corporate headquarters, 3 floors of a renovated brick building. The reception area had warm lighting, architectural sketches on exposed brick walls, and comfortable furniture. A young woman with purple streaks in her hair looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm Daniel Devi. Ms. Moreau is expecting me." Her eyes widened slightly. "Right, I'm Gretchen. Follow me." Camilla's office was at the back, with windows overlooking a small courtyard. She stood when he entered, professional and distant in a charcoal suit. "Mr. Devi, punctual. That's a start. Where would you like me to begin?" "The Dean. Gretchen will set you up. You'll be assisting Desmond with the Riverside project. He'll show you our systems and what we expect." "And what is that?" "Hard work, attention to detail, humility." Her eyes met his directly. "Can you manage those?" "Yes." "One more thing." Camilla moved closer, her voice dropping. "No one here knows our history except Gretchen. You're here as a consultant, nothing more. My personal life doesn't belong in this office." "Of course. Whatever you need." Desmond turned out to be a patient man who walked Daniel through their software and filing systems. "Ms. Moreau runs a tight ship. Work hard, be honest, and she'll support you. Slack off or lie. You're gone." Daniel spent that first week feeling like he'd been dropped into a foreign country. The software was different. The processes prioritized communication over hierarchy. People actually collaborated. He found himself taking notes for his own company's improvement. He made coffee runs, assembled presentation boards, double-checked measurements until his eyes crossed. The work was humbling, and he loved it because Camilla's fingerprints were everywhere, the care in every project, the respect for both budget and beauty. By week 3, people had stopped treating him like a curiosity. He was just another consultant, grabbing lunch at food trucks, debating design choices. Camilla maintained professional distance. She corrected his work when necessary, praised it when warranted, but never let their interactions become personal. Daniel respected the boundary, even as it killed him. He completed Condition 2 during his second week. $50 million to organizations supporting single mothers, shelters, job training, childcare assistance, all donated in Camilla Moreau's name. Theron called him that night. "Mist, 50 million to single mothers organizations? That's oddly specific. It's part of something I'm working on." "You found her, didn't you?" "Camilla, I'm trying to earn my way back into her life." "Good. Don't screw it up again." Condition 3 came next. Daniel spent evenings drafting the letter, striking balance between honesty and discretion. The final version was raw. "I destroyed my first marriage through infidelity and selfishness. I blamed my then-wife for becoming boring, when the truth was, I lacked maturity to recognize that real love requires cultivation, not just passion. I traded something genuine for something flashy, and I've spent decades regretting that choice. This isn't seeking forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But to anyone thinking success excuses moral failure, it doesn't. Money means nothing if you lose your humanity earning it." He published it everywhere. It went viral within hours. Some praised his honesty. Others accused him of performative guilt. Daniel only cared about Camilla's text. "I read your letter. It was a start." Condition 4 proved more challenging. Camilla chose Dr. Leontine Ashford, a woman with iron-gray hair and penetrating eyes. Their first session was excruciating. "Let's start with why you cheated," Dr. Ashford said. Daniel looked at Camilla, arms crossed. "I was scared of how much I loved her, so I sabotaged it. What did the affair give you? Power, control, validation that I was still exciting instead of domesticated." Camilla's jaw tightened. "And what did it cost you?" "Everything that actually mattered. My wife, my integrity, 20 years of peace." The sessions continued weekly, excavating ruins. Camilla spoke about loneliness. Daniel confronted entitled masculinity. It was brutal, necessary, and something shifted between them. After one session, they walked to their cars in silence. "I didn't understand how much I took from you," Daniel finally said. "Not just fidelity, but your dreams, your identity." Camilla paused. "No, I let myself disappear. You created the environment, but I chose to fade. We were both wrong, just differently." It was the first time she'd admitted any responsibility. "Thank you for doing this. I'm learning things about myself, too. About why I tolerated what I tolerated." She looked at him directly. "Maybe it's time I examined my own part." Something thawed between them. The fifth condition loomed. Daniel wondered constantly who the two people Camilla valued most were. He didn't ask. Then one evening in month 4, everything changed. Daniel was working late when Camilla appeared. "You've gotten better at this." He looked up, startled. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, more like the woman he'd married. "Desmond is a good teacher. I need to show you something. Will you come with me?" She drove them toward a residential neighborhood, neither speaking. They pulled up to a modest house with warm lights glowing. Camilla sat with the engine off, gripping the steering wheel. "Before we go in, you need to know something. The night I left you, I was pregnant." The words hit like a physical blow. "You had a baby. Babies, twins, sons." She turned to look at him. "Matthew and Michael. They're in that house waiting to meet their father for the first time." Daniel couldn't breathe. Sons. He had sons. Had missed everything. "I'm sorry," Camilla said quietly, "for not telling you, but they deserve to know their father." The fifth condition. "The two people I have to earn respect from. Yes, your sons." She opened her car door. "They know everything. They're protective of me, and they won't make this easy. But they're fair." Daniel followed her on legs that felt like water. Camilla opened the door, and there they were. Two tall young men who looked like him but moved with Camilla's grace. "Matthew, Michael, this is your father. Daniel Davy." The serious one, Matthew, extended his hand. "Mr. Davy, we've heard a lot about you. All of it bad, I'm sure." "Most of it," Michael admitted. "But Mom says you're trying to change, so we'll reserve judgment." Camilla disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Daniel alone with his sons. The interrogation began. "Why did you cheat on Mom? What makes you think you've changed? Do you understand what she went through?" Daniel answered every question honestly, fighting back tears. He told them about his therapy, his regret, his desperate attempt to become worthy. "Do we factor into your redemption plan, or are we just obstacles?" Matthew asked sharply. "I didn't know you existed until 10 minutes ago. But now that I do, I want to know you. Not as a path to your mother, but because you're my sons. I missed everything, and that's my fault. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your future." The twins exchanged a wordless look. "We'll see," Michael said. "Actions matter more than words. Mom taught us that," Matthew added. "So prove yourself." Camilla returned with coffee. They talked for hours about the twins' plans, studies, lives. Daniel listened more than he spoke, trying to absorb everything. When it was time to leave, Matthew walked him out. "Don't hurt her again. She's the strongest person we know, but everyone has a breaking point." "I won't, I swear." "Good, because if you do, you'll deal with us." Daniel drove home in a daze. He had sons, brilliant, protective, remarkable sons. He'd won the fifth condition, not their respect yet, but the chance to earn it. Now he just had to prove he deserved a second chance at the family he'd destroyed. Camilla had learned to rely only on herself, to push beyond human limits, because she'd survived on her own for so long she'd forgotten how to ask for help. A doctor emerged, clipboard in hand. Family of Camilla Moreau. They stood as one unit. "How is she?" Daniel asked. "Stable. Severe exhaustion and dehydration. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. We're keeping her overnight for observation, but she should make a full recovery with rest." The doctor looked at each of them. "She's been running herself ragged. This is her body's way of forcing her to stop. Make sure she actually rests when we release her." They were allowed in 2 at a time. The twins went first, leaving Daniel alone with his spiraling thoughts. What if something worse had happened? What if he'd wasted these months being careful and patient when he should have been fighting harder to show her she didn't have to carry everything alone? When Matthew and Michael emerged, Michael squeezed Daniel's shoulder. "She's asking for you." Camilla looked small in the hospital bed, IV tubes snaking from her arm, monitors beeping steadily. Her eyes were closed, but they fluttered open when he approached. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I came." Daniel pulled a chair close and took her hand carefully, mindful of the IV. "You scared us all half to death." "I'm fine. Just tired." "You collapsed, Camilla." "That's not fine. I have too much work. The work will wait." "Your health won't." He stroked her hand gently. "Why do you do this to yourself? You have a whole firm of talented people. Let them help you. I can't afford to fail. If I slow down, if I let anything slip, you won't fail. You're brilliant and successful, and you've proven yourself 1,000 times over. You don't have to keep fighting like you're still that woman with nothing." His voice cracked. "Please, let people help you. Let me help you." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I don't know how to stop. Hustling is all I know. It's what kept us alive. But you're not just surviving anymore. You're allowed to live, Camilla, to rest, to let other people carry some of the weight." He brought her hand to his lips. "You don't have to do everything alone anymore." She cried then, really cried, years of exhaustion and fear and stubborn independence breaking apart in that sterile room. Daniel held her as best he could with the hospital equipment between them and felt his own tears fall. The twins reappeared in the doorway, drawn by their mother's distress. They crowded into the room, and suddenly all four of them were there, this family that had been fractured and was slowly, painfully reassembling. "We've got you, Mom," Michael said, taking her other hand. "All of us." "You're not alone." "You were never alone," Matthew added. "You just thought you had to be." Camilla looked at each of them, her sons who'd grown strong despite everything, and Daniel who was trying desperately to become the man he should have been all along. "I'm sorry. For being stubborn, for not asking for help." "Save your apologies," Daniel said gently. "Just promise you'll actually rest. Only if you all promise to help me with the tower project. I can't do it alone, and it's due in 3 weeks. "Done," all three men said simultaneously. That week became a revelation. Daniel moved into Camilla's guest room with the twins' approval and took over managing her household so she could recover. He cooked meals following recipes Michael texted him. He fielded calls from her firm. He learned the intricate dance of caring for someone without smothering them. The twins came and went, bringing homework and laughter and the casual chaos of young adult life. The house that had been Camilla's sanctuary became something more, a home filled with voices and presence and the messy reality of people learning to be a family. At night, Daniel would check on Camilla before going to his own room. These moments became sacred, her propped up in bed reviewing designs, him bringing her tea she'd actually drink because he made it exactly how she liked it. "You don't have to do all this," she said one night. "I want to." He sat on the edge of her bed, careful to maintain appropriate distance. "Let me take care of you for once. You've been taking care of everyone else for so long. It feels strange, letting myself be vulnerable. Vulnerability isn't weakness, Camilla. It's trust. And I'm grateful you trust me enough to help." She studied him in the dim light. "You really have changed, haven't you? This isn't a performance. No, this is me trying to be worthy of you. Every single day." The tower project became their shared obsession. Daniel worked alongside her team at Moreau Designs, bringing his resources but respecting her vision. Late nights found them hunched over blueprints at her dining table, debating load calculations and aesthetic choices while the twins studied nearby. One evening, their hands reached for the same pencil. The contact sent electricity through Daniel's arm. Camilla's eyes met his, and for a suspended moment, the years collapsed. He saw recognition there. She felt it too. This magnetic pull that had never died despite everything. "Camilla," he breathed. leaning closer. She didn't pull away, but she didn't close the distance either. We can't, not yet. I'm still scared. I know. He forced himself to sit back. I can wait, however long it takes. But the tension between them was unbearable now. Every accidental touch, every shared glance, every moment of unguarded laughter reminded them both of what they'd once had and what they might reclaim. The twins noticed, of course. Nothing escaped those two. Just kiss her already, Michael said one day when they were alone. The sexual tension is killing all of us. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You love her. She loves you. You've both done the work. What are you waiting for? A written invitation? Her to be ready. Her to trust that I won't hurt her again. Matthew joined them, having overheard. Mom's not going to make the first move. She's too scared. You're going to have to take the risk. What if she rejects me? Then you'll deal with it, Matthew said firmly. But you'll never know unless you try. And honestly, Dad, watching you two dance around each other is exhausting. Either commit or walk away, but stop existing in this limbo. The tower presentation loomed, the culmination of months of work. Camilla was nervous in a way Daniel had never seen her, pacing, second-guessing, running through contingencies. What if they hate it? She asked the night before the presentation. They won't. It's brilliant. You're brilliant. You have to say that. No, I don't. I could say it's adequate or promising or has potential. I'm saying it's brilliant because it is. You took my ego project and turned it into something meaningful. A building that serves the community instead of just announcing its owner's wealth. They'd be fools to reject it. She looked at him with something like wonder. You really believe in me. Always have. I just forgot to show it. I won't make that mistake again. The presentation went flawlessly. Camilla commanded the room with quiet confidence, walking the board through every design choice, every sustainable feature, every community benefit. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before the entire room erupted in applause. They awarded her the contract on the spot. The celebration afterward was joyous. Her whole firm gathered at a restaurant. Champagne flowing, everyone congratulating Camilla on landing the biggest project of her career. Daniel watched from across the room as people told her how much she deserved this, how proud they were, how lucky the firm was to have her. She glowed, literally glowed with happiness and vindication and the satisfaction of a job well done. And when her eyes found his across the crowded room, the look she gave him made his heart stop. Later, after most people had left, they found themselves on the restaurant's rooftop terrace. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Camilla leaned against the railing, her face tilted toward the sky. I did it, she said softly. I actually did it. You did. Daniel stood beside her, close enough to feel her warmth, but not touching. Your 6 months are up, by the way. My contract with your firm ended today. She turned to face him. I know, I've been thinking about that. And I don't want you to leave. The firm, I mean, you've become integral to what we do. The team respects you. You've brought insights and resources we needed. She paused. But also, I don't want you to leave. Other things, my life. The boys' lives. This fragile thing we've been building. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. I don't want you to leave me again, Daniel. He turned to face her fully, his heart hammering. I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you send me away. Camilla, these months with you, with our sons, have been the happiest of my life. I wake up grateful and go to bed hopeful. I'm better because of you. I'm whole because of you. I'm still scared, she admitted. Terrified, actually. What if I'm making the same mistake twice? You're not, because I'm not the same man, and you're not the same woman. We're both scarred and wiser and capable of choosing better this time. He took her hands in his. I love you, Camilla. I loved you when we were kids playing at marriage. I loved you when I was too stupid to protect that love. I loved you through 20 years of absence. And I love you now, with everything I've learned about what love actually means. Not passion or excitement, but showing up, protecting, cherishing, choosing you every single day. Chapter 8. Fathers and Sons. The basketball swished through the net. Michael grabbed the rebound and tossed it to Daniel, who'd barely broken a sweat despite keeping pace with his sons for the past hour. "Not bad for an old man," Michael called out, grinning. Daniel shot from the three-point line and made it. "I've still got some moves." Matthew intercepted and executed a perfect layup. "Mom said you played in college. Before you got too important for hobbies." The comment had teeth, but Daniel took it. Everything with the twins was a test. Could he handle their jabs, their protectiveness, their skepticism? "She wasn't wrong," Daniel admitted, taking a water break. "I got so obsessed with building my empire that I forgot why empires matter. They're supposed to serve something larger. And what does yours serve now?" Matthew asked, always pushing. "Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. Working at your mom's firm taught me something. She builds spaces for people to live. I built monuments to my ego. There's a difference." The twins exchanged one of their wordless looks. Daniel was learning to read these. This one said he'd given an acceptable answer. They played until the sun slanted low. As they walked back, Michael clapped Daniel on the shoulder. "Same time next week?" I'll be here." "Good. And maybe bring better trash talk." Matthew's getting too cocky. Daniel's relationship with Matthew required more work. The serious twin had his mother's wariness, her ability to withhold trust. They met for lunch one afternoon at Matthew's request. He'd chosen a corner booth where they could talk privately. "Mom says you completed your 6 months at her firm," Matthew said after they'd ordered. "I did." Desmond said I graduated from completely hopeless to merely incompetent. Matthew didn't smile. "Why did you do it? Was it really about making amends, or just another way to manipulate her?" The question was brutal and fair. At first, maybe a little of both. I wanted absolution, but somewhere in those 6 months, it stopped being about what I wanted and became about what she deserved. She deserved to see me humbled, to watch me struggle. And what did you learn? That I was a fool. That your mother is the strongest person I've ever known, and I didn't recognize that when I had the chance. Daniel leaned forward. "Matthew, I know you don't trust me. You shouldn't, but I'm asking you to let me prove day by day that I'm capable of being better." Matthew studied him. "Do you know what it was like? Growing up and watching her work herself to exhaustion, knowing she sacrificed everything so we could have decent lives. And I can imagine—" "No, you can't." Matthew's voice was hard. "You can intellectualize it, but you can't actually know what it was like to be 7 and aware that your mum hadn't eaten dinner, so you and your brother could have seconds. That's the reality you created." Daniel felt the words like hammer blows. "You're right, and I'll spend the rest of my life wishing I could undo it. But I can't, so all I can do is be here now if you'll let me." "Mom loves you still," Matthew said abruptly. "She pretends she doesn't, but I see how she looks at you. It terrifies me because I don't want her hurt again. If this is all a performance, I need you to walk away now." "It's not a performance." "I swear." "Then prove it." "Not to me, to her." They finished lunch in silence, a fragile truce established. When Matthew hugged him goodbye, quick and awkward but real, Daniel had to fight back tears. Michael was easier, more open. He invited Daniel to his medical school orientation, introduced him as my father, seemed genuinely interested in building a relationship. "I'm not saying I'm not angry," Michael explained over dinner. "I am, but you're also my father, and I've spent my whole life wondering what that would be like. I'm choosing to hope rather than assume the worst. That's remarkably mature. Mom raised us to give people chances, but only one chance. Remember that." The therapy sessions with Camilla continued, growing deeper. They excavated old wounds, examined patterns, challenged each other's narratives. "You're both different people now," Dr. Ashford said during one session. "The question isn't whether you can recreate what you had. It's whether the people you've become can build something new." Daniel glanced at Camilla. "Is that something you'd want? Building something new?" She didn't answer immediately. "I don't know. Part of me will always protect the woman who was destroyed. But part of me wonders." "Wonders what?" Maybe we both needed to break completely to have any chance of being whole together. They started spending more time together outside of therapy. Coffee meetings turned into lunch. Lunch turned into dinner. Dinner turned into walks through the city. One evening at the Beltline, surrounded by joggers and families, they walked without touching. "The boys are incredible," Daniel said. "How did you do it?" "Bundy, I didn't have a choice. When you're the only thing standing between your children and disaster, you find strength." Camilla paused to watch a father teaching his daughter to ride a bike. "But I also had help. Anouk and Octavia and others. I learned that community matters more than money. I'm sorry you had to learn that the hard way." "Stop apologizing." She turned to face him. "I want to know what's next. You've completed all 5 conditions. What do you actually want from me?" He'd been dreading and hoping for this question. "I want whatever you're willing to give. If that's friendship, I'll take it. If it's more, I'll spend every day earning it." "That's not an answer." "Fine, you want honesty." Daniel stopped walking. "I want you back. I want the chance to love you the way I should have. I want to wake up next to you and build a life where you never doubt you're cherished. But I know I don't deserve that. So I'll take whatever pieces you're willing to share." Camilla's eyes glistened. "You hurt me so deeply. I'm not sure all the therapy and growth can make me trust you again. What if I let you in and you break me a second time? Then you'll be justified in never speaking to me again." "But Camilla, I'm not that man anymore. I've spent 20 years learning the difference between passion and love, between what glitters and what's gold." "You're gold. You've always been gold." "Pretty words. True words." He wanted to reach for her but kept his hands at his sides. "If you give me another chance, I will protect what we build like it's the most precious thing in existence." "Because it is." "You are. I need time to think, to figure out if I'm strong enough to risk my heart again." "Take all the time you need." "I'll wait." They resumed walking, and Daniel's hand accidentally brushed hers. Neither pulled away. The contact was electric. Later that week, Lysandra returned. Daniel was leaving his building when she materialized from the shadows. Her beauty hardened into something brittle. "Daniel, it's been a while." "Lysandra, what do you want?" "I heard you've been reformed, writing public letters about your mistakes." Her smile was sharp. "I wonder what people would think if they knew the whole story. About the boring wife who drove you into my arms." "I kept emails, Daniel, text messages." The threat was clear. "If you're trying to blackmail me, you're wasting your time. I don't care what you release. I've already told the world I was unfaithful. They might matter to her." "Your ex-wife. Does she know you were complaining about her for months?" Get away from me, Lysandra. You got your money. That's all you're entitled to." "I'm entitled to whatever I can get," but she was backing down. "You always were too noble." She disappeared. Daniel called Camilla immediately. Lysandra approached me, threatened to release old messages where I complained about you. "I wanted you to hear it from me first." There was a pause. "Thank you for telling me." "And Daniel? I don't care about old messages. I know who you were then. I'm more interested in who you are now. I'm someone who would never let that woman harm you. You're more important than my reputation." "Good answer." He could hear the smile in her voice. "The boys are expecting you for dinner tomorrow. Michael is cooking. You'll need your strength." Something had shifted. She'd defended him. She'd invited him to family dinner. Maybe trust was being rebuilt. That night, Daniel lay in bed and let himself imagine impossible things. Family dinners, lazy mornings, growing old with Camilla and watching their sons build lives, grandchildren, laughter, love earned and protected. It wasn't guaranteed. It might never happen. But for the first time in 20 years, Daniel Deavy felt like his future held something more valuable than money. It held hope. And hope, he was learning, was worth more than every empire he'd ever built. Chapter 9. The Unraveling and the Revolution. The hospital waiting room smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee, and Daniel's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Michael had called at 3 in the morning, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Dad, it's Mom. She collapsed at home. We're at Piedmont General. Can you come?" Daniel had broken every speed limit getting there. Now he sat between his sons, all three of them silent with fear, waiting for doctors to emerge from behind those forbidding double doors and tell them whether Camilla was dying or just exhausted or something in between. "She's been working too hard," Matthew said, his voice hollow. "The tower project, plus 3 other major contracts. She won't delegate, won't slow down." "She never does," Michael added. "We tried telling her. She just smiled and said she was fine." Daniel closed his eyes, hating himself all over again. Even now, decades later, his actions rippled forward. "Daniel, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to decide anything tonight. I just needed you to know. Whatever you decide, wherever this goes, I'm yours, completely, irrevocably yours." Camilla's eyes glistened with tears. She opened her mouth to respond, but footsteps on the stairs interrupted them. Theron appeared slightly drunk and grinning widely. "There you two are! Camilla, you were magnificent tonight. Daniel won't shut up about you." "Oh." He registered the intensity of the moment. "Am I interrupting?" "Yes," Daniel said. "No," Camilla said simultaneously, stepping back from Daniel. "We should get back to the party." She disappeared down the stairs, leaving Daniel alone with Theron and a moment that had been building for months, now fractured. "I'm an idiot," Theron said, wincing. "I interrupted something important. It's fine, or it will be." "I hope." Daniel ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. She was about to say something. "Then she'll say it when she's ready. Come on, let's rejoin the living." But the moment was lost. Camilla stayed close to her employees the rest of the night, and when Daniel tried to catch her alone, she smiled and said she was tired and needed to get home. The twins drove her. Daniel went to his own penthouse, which felt emptier than ever after weeks of living in the warm chaos of Camilla's home. He'd laid his heart bare, told her he loved her, and she'd run. Maybe Matthew was right. Maybe he needed to stop waiting for permission and just take the risk. Maybe he needed to fight for her instead of being so respectful of her boundaries that he never crossed them. Or maybe she needed more time, more proof, more certainty that he wouldn't shatter her again. Daniel stood at his window looking out at the city, at the building he owned, but Camilla had reimagined and made a decision. He would give her 1 more week to process. 1 more week to decide if she could trust him with her heart, and if she still couldn't decide. Then he would lay out everything he felt, consequences be damned, and let her make her choice with full knowledge of how desperately he wanted her back. But that week would be the longest of his life. His phone buzzed. A text from Camilla. "Thank you for tonight, for believing in me, for everything. I'm sorry I ran. I just needed to think." He typed back, "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." But as he sent the message, Daniel knew he was lying. He couldn't exist in this limbo forever. Something had to break, one way or another. The question was whether it would be her walls or his heart, and he'd find out soon enough which one was more fragile. Chapter 10. The Redemption of Love. Camilla stood in the rain outside, Daniel's building at midnight, soaked through and shivering, finally understanding what it meant to choose love over fear. 3 days had passed since the rooftop. 3 days of the twins watching her with knowing eyes. 3 days of lying awake, remembering the way Daniel had looked at her when he said, "I'm yours." She'd driven herself crazy analyzing, weighing risks, building walls that kept crumbling. The moment she thought of his hands holding hers, or the way he'd learned to make her tea exactly right, or how he'd stayed up all night helping Matthew with a law school application just because it mattered to their son. Tonight, Michael had finally confronted her. "Mum, what are you so afraid of?" "That he'll hurt me again." "He won't, but even if he did, you'd survive it. You survived it before when you had nothing. Now you have us, your career, your strength. You're afraid of pain, that can't actually destroy you anymore. Matthew had added quietly, "You taught us that love is worth the risk. Maybe it's time you believed your own lesson." So here she was, soaked and shaking, pressing the buzzer to Daniel's penthouse. "Yes?" His voice through the intercom sounded tired. "It's me. Can I come up?" Silence. Then, "Of course." The elevator ride lasted an eternity. When the doors opened directly into his penthouse, Daniel was waiting, backlit by the city lights, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt that somehow made him more attractive than any expensive suit. "You're soaking wet," he said, already moving toward her with a towel he'd grabbed from somewhere. "What happened?" "I was sitting in my car outside for 20 minutes trying to find courage." She let him wrap the towel around her shoulders. "I'm terrified, Daniel. Absolutely terrified. Of me? Of this. Of trusting you with my heart again. Of being vulnerable. Of," her voice broke, "of loving you as much as I do." His hands stilled on the towel. "What did you say?" "I love you." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I never stopped. Not through the betrayal or the years or the pain or the rebuilding. I buried it so deep I almost believed it was gone, but it wasn't. It was just waiting. And these months, watching you become the man you were always capable of being, seeing you with our sons, experiencing your gentleness and your patience and your genuine remorse. I can't keep pretending I don't want this. Want you. Want us." Daniel cupped her face with shaking hands. "Are you sure? Because once I touch you, once I let myself believe this is real, I won't be able to let you go again. I'm sure. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing us." He kissed her then, and it was like coming home after a lifetime in exile. His lips were gentle at first, questioning, making sure she was certain. Then Camilla's hands fisted in his shirt, and she kissed him back, with 20 years of hunger, and gentleness ignited into desperation. They broke apart, gasping. Daniel rested his forehead against hers. "I love you so much it physically hurts. Show me." She pulled him toward his bedroom. "Show me how much." No more waiting, no more fear. They shed wet clothes and old grief together. When Daniel laid her on his bed, he worshipped every inch of her with his hands and mouth, tracing stretch marks from carrying their sons, kissing scars she'd earned surviving, memorizing the geography of her body like a pilgrim learning sacred ground. "You're so beautiful," he breathed against her skin. "So impossibly beautiful." Camilla arched into his touch, relearning the planes of his body, cataloguing new scars and the silver threading his hair. "We're not who we were. No, we're better." He kissed her deeply, broken and rebuilt stronger. When he finally moved inside her, they both gasped at the rightness of it. This wasn't the frantic passion of youth. It was something deeper, earned through suffering and patience and the choice to forgive. They moved together like a conversation in a language only they spoke. And when Camilla cried out his name, Daniel followed her over the edge, burying his face in her neck and whispering, "I love you," like a prayer. Afterward, wrapped in each other, Camilla traced lazy patterns on his chest. "I forgive you," she said quietly, "not because you've earned it, though you have, but because I deserve peace." "We both do." Daniel's arms tightened around her. "I'll spend every day earning that forgiveness anyway." "I know you will." She kissed his jaw. "That's how I know it's safe to give it." They made love again, slower this time, savoring every touch. When they finally slept, it was tangled together, years of absence erased by simple proximity. Morning brought the twins, who'd used their keys and found the penthouse empty. "She's not home." The Matthews voice drifted from the living room. "Phone's going straight to voicemail." "Check Dad's place," Michael suggested. Daniel and Camilla stumbled out of the bedroom, hastily dressed, to find their sons in the living room. The twins took one look at their parents, rumpled clothes, swollen lips, identical expressions of caught happiness, and grinned. "Finally," Michael said. "About time," Matthew added. "We were about to lock you both in a room." Camilla blushed. "We should talk about this." "Nothing to talk about." Michael hugged them both. "We're happy for you, both of you. But if you hurt her again," Matthew told Daniel seriously, "I'll destroy you legally." Just so we're clear, crystal clear. Daniel pulled his son into a hug. Thank you for giving me this chance. They had breakfast together, takeout because no one could cook, and talked about what came next. Daniel would move some things into Camilla's house. They'd take things slowly, mindful of the fragility of their rebuilt trust. The boys were heading back to school soon, but they'd visit often. I want to do this right, Daniel told Camilla later when they were alone. Court you properly. Show you how you deserve to be loved. You've been courting me for months. Then marry me. The words escaped before he could stop them. Not now, not even soon, but someday when you're ready, marry me again. Let me stand in front of everyone and promise to love you better this time. Camilla's eyes filled with tears. Ask me in a year. If we make it a year without falling apart, ask me then. It's a deal. They spent the following months learning to be together without the weight of conditions or therapy assignments. Daniel taught Camilla to delegate at her firm. She taught him that success meant nothing without connection. They had arguments and make-ups, tested boundaries, and established new ones, built a relationship on the foundation of their shared history, but with the wisdom of their separate growth. 1 year later, almost to the day, Daniel took Camilla back to the rooftop where he'd first confessed his love. Their sons were there, along with Theron and Octavia and Anouk and everyone who mattered. He got down on one knee with a ring, simpler than the first one, more meaningful. Camilla Evan Moreau, I once promised to love you forever and broke that promise. I'm asking for the chance to make that promise again, with full understanding of what forever actually means. It means choosing you on hard days. It means protecting what we build. It means never ever taking you for granted. Will you marry me? Yes. She pulled him up and kissed him. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The wedding was small, just family and close friends in the garden courtyard of her firm's building. Camilla wore a simple dress. Daniel wore a suit without flash. And when they exchanged vows, they didn't use traditional words. I promise to show up, Daniel said, to choose you daily, to honor the woman who survived my worst and still found grace enough to forgive me. I promise to trust, Camilla said, to be vulnerable, to build with you instead of apart from you, to remember that we're stronger together. Matthew and Michael stood as joint best men, and when the officiant pronounced them married, both twins shouted, "Finally!" loud enough to make everyone laugh. That night, in a hotel suite overlooking the city, Daniel and Camilla lay tangled in sheets and each other, mapping bodies they now knew by heart. We lost 20 years, Camilla whispered. We gained wisdom, sons, and a love strong enough to survive death and resurrection. Daniel kissed her slowly, thoroughly. I'd live those 20 years of pain again if it meant ending up here, with you, with this understanding of how precious you are. Don't waste any more time then, Camilla said, pulling him closer, and he didn't. They made love like people who'd learned that time was finite, but love, real love, could transcend it. When they finally slept, it was with smiles on their faces and peace in their hearts. 6 months later, Camilla discovered she was pregnant. The news terrified them both, but Daniel's hand on her belly and his tears of joy reassured her this time would be different. Their daughter was born into a family whole and healed, held by a father who'd learned that the greatest success was measured in moments, not money, and loved by a mother who'd survived everything and found her way back to hope, and in the space where betrayal once lived. Forgiveness built a palace more beautiful than memory, more enduring than regret. The end.